the market just tanked, absolutely just tanked. I had a client that just was very unreasonable, ended up suing me. And I ran out of money and there was no jobs. Like I couldn't build a doghouse for anybody. The advice of counsel, I had to shut my business down and file for bankruptcy. I love what I do. I feel like this is who I was called to be. And frankly, it's not necessarily building, although that's how it's manifesting itself now. It's just being the type of person that I was called to be. And it just happens to be in this particular industry.
Hey there, and welcome to From the Ground Up Show, the show where we inspire and encourage free-thinking leaders by telling the stories of those that have been there, done that, and are still getting it done. People who have built a life that they love with their hands, their heart, and their hustle. I'm your host, Eric Loden, and today I am joined by Mike Riddle. Mike is a fellow graduate of Linfield College. Go Wildcats! He began his career as an elementary school teacher and now owns and runs Riddle Construction, a custom home building company. Mike is a husband and a father. So welcome, Mike. Thank you for joining us on the show.
Thank you, sir. Happy to be here.
Great. Well, we like to start off every show just getting to know you a little bit. And so we start clear at the beginning. Can you tell us a little bit about where you grew up, how you grew up? What was your childhood like?
Yeah, absolutely. So I grew up in Salem. We lived out in the country and attended North Salem High School. Graduated from high school in 1993. I played football and baseball there and had the opportunity to continue my sports career into college. And so I really had kind of two choices to go to school because my major was going to be athletic training. And the only two schools in Oregon at the time, Oregon State and Linfield, and I wasn't good enough to play baseball or football at Oregon State. So Linfield was my easy choice. So started there in 93 and graduated in 97 with a degree in athletic training and as well as all of my teaching credentials. So as you mentioned before, I became an elementary school teacher. I taught elementary PE. I did that for 7 years, and then I coached baseball at McMinnville High School, as well as was an athletic trainer there, along with another trainer friend. So great years of my life. I'd still be doing it if I could afford to be a teacher, but had a great time kind of working with both levels of kids. You know, you have the young kids in the morning and then the older kids in the afternoon. And just really, it was a love of mine to be able to give back to the kids of that community, just like people poured into me when I was younger. And, you know, getting started in the construction company wasn't never really part of my goal. When I graduated from high school, I worked for a custom home builder remodeler every summer and every break and learned how to do, you know, foundations and framing and trim carpentry and, you know, all hands on, not necessarily all the thinking or ordering or anything like that, but it was, I learned how to do the work. And it was either the hottest times of the year or the coldest times of the year. So it wasn't something that I thought was, boy, I want to do this the rest of my life. But it was good skills. So when my wife and I decided we wanted to have kids, she said, hey, I really want to stay home. And she was a school teacher as well. She taught first and second grade. And I said, okay, well, I better find a second job. So what I decided was, hey, I know how to do physical labor and you know, fix things like that on a home. And so what I did is I started a company back then. It was a different name of the company. And I started with my dad because he was retired and, you know, he had the startup funds for me and did a flip and did another flip. And then finally, but I really wanted to do new construction. That was my love. And so I bought a lot, built a house. I think the first house I built was like maybe in 2003 or something like that. I started the company in 2002. Finally built my first house in 2003. And, you know, here we are, gosh, almost 23 years later and have a completely different business plan, a different company, different life than I had ever thought was even possible.
Yeah, that's great. I can agree with you. We do not pay our teachers well enough. I think there's two types of teachers. There are great teachers that don't get paid nearly well enough, and then there's crummy teachers that get paid too much.
Yeah, yeah, and I think that's probably true in every industry. But it is definitely a passion project. I mean, the pay is okay; it's not great. It's certainly really not great for to build a family upon, but it is doable.
Yeah.
So.
I know, especially there in Oregon, it's rough. We pay our teachers a little bit better here in Wyoming, and I still don't think it's enough. But what was it that originally led you into teaching? What got you on that career path to start out with?
Yeah, I think just the coaches and the teachers that I had in high school really kind of influenced me. I knew I always wanted to be a coach of some sort. A teacher wasn't necessarily sure that's what I wanted, because when I went into college, what I had went in for was athletic training, as I had mentioned. And I soon realized that the athletic training world, in order to make any kind of a reasonable income, you had to kind of do it at the professional level. So you had to work with a Blazers or the Dallas Cowboys or something like that, where you're traveling all the time and, hard to put your roots down and raise a family. And I quickly realized, that's not the lifestyle that I was really looking for. So I really enjoyed being coached and being taught when I was, in high school. Maybe I could do that. So that's when I decided, I think my sophomore year, partway through my sophomore year, decided, well, I'm also going to get all my teaching credentials alongside of my other degree. And so it was kind of doing, 2 degrees at once, but it gave me the ability to still do the athletic training that I loved and be able to coach and teach. And that kind of came apparent to me in college when I realized the lifestyle of being a professional, being on the road with a professional team was just not something I desired.
Yeah. Awesome. Was there a particular teacher or coach that really inspired you, really made a difference in your life?
Yeah. His name was Coach V, as in Victor, but it stood for Velutini, a very Italian name. And Coach V was an inspiration to everybody at the high school. He was a football coach, but also the weightlifting coach. And I would say it was probably the summer of my 8th grade year. The head football coach came up to me and said, "Hey, Mike, how much do you weigh? How tall are you?" And he said, "Mike, your body is going to really transform if you would get yourself into the weight room and you would just dedicate yourself to getting stronger." And I said, "Okay, no one ever said that before, but let's do it." And Coach V was the person who was actually in the weight room teaching. And if you can kind of picture somebody who's super intense, but can tell you that he loves you with intensity, unlike anybody else I've ever experienced in my entire life. He was amazing. And I always wanted to emulate the best parts of him. I would never have the same personality or intensity that he did, but to be able to take the positive things that he did and the love that he showed through discipline and correction and use that in some other form of a career. So yeah, Coach Velutini would be my inspiration.
That's great. I've always imagined maybe someday having a second career of being a part-time teacher or a coach. I think that would be fun, but I don't know that that's going to be in the cards for me. So
sure.
We'll see.
Sure.
Yeah. Well, tell me a little bit more about starting your business. You said you really started out with a vision to bring your wife home, allow her to stay home with your kids instead of being in the workforce. So how did that go? What steps did you take to get your business off the ground, and what did that look like?
Yeah. Well, kind of a long road. And it was, again, there was no roadmap, nobody to say, "Hey, Mike, you should try it this way." But when my wife told me that that was her dreams, to stay home, I was like, okay, how are we going to figure this out? Well, I need about this much money, which frankly at the time was not that much money. To be able to replace her salary, I didn't need to do too much. But the concept is that I would continue to work my full-time job, and then I would do side projects, if you will, throughout the year. And I knew that, okay, well, I needed it to make at least her salary back to kind of keep us even. And so I started the business with my dad, as I mentioned. It was called R Squared Properties back then. So my last name is Riddle. So Riddle and Riddle it made R Squared. And so what I would do is I would teach all day, and then I would drive to whatever job site we were doing. So first job was in McMinnville, second job was in McMinnville, and then my third job, which was my new construction home, was in Lincoln City. So at the time I lived in Perrydale, which is kind of out in if anybody who knows where we live, it's kind of out in the middle of nowhere. And it's like in between kind of Salem and Dallas and McMinnville. And then, so I would drive to Newburgh, which took me about 40 minutes or so. I would teach all day, and then I would drive to Lincoln City, which would take, hour and 15, hour and 20 minutes, whatever. I'd work till, however long I needed to. I did a lot of self-performing, a lot of the pickup framing and trim carpentry and painting and punch list and hanging stuff. I'd work till, late at night, and then I'd drive home and, rinse and repeat. And so did that for a couple of years. I built and sold that house. I don't think I made any money, but I actually earned a lot of educational credits on that one for sure. So I probably made like $5,000, and everybody else made money except for me, other than the education that I just earned. Then I bought 2 more lots and built 2 more spec homes. And at that point, I had sold those at kind of the height of the market, like 2004, 2005. And I made more money on those 2 homes than I did like in 5 years teaching salary. And it was just, it was a sign like, gosh, I can actually make a career out of this. I don't have to do both the rest of my life and just, live on 5 or 6 hours of sleep forever. And so I made the decision that I would switch. However, I didn't make that decision till June, and I'd already signed my teaching contract for the next year in March. And I wanted to honor that, not leave on a bad foot. So taught the whole another year, and I had some other subdivisions in Dallas and McMinnville where I was building spec homes. And that went really well for several years. And then, made the transition, made the switch. The last day of teaching was just heartbreaking for me because the kids just loved me. I loved them. It was just, it was a really tough time because it was that transition in life where you knew you were doing some good things, but there was something better that was taking your attention. So made that switch for a couple of years, and then the market just tanked, absolutely just tanked. And it's not that I had a whole lot of exposure, didn't have a bunch of lots or anything, but did have one house. And then I had a client that just was very unreasonable, ended up suing me. And I had ran out of money, and there was no jobs. Like I couldn't build a doghouse for anybody. And so at the advice of counsel, I had to shut my business down and file for bankruptcy. And I lost everything. I lost two rental houses. We lost our home. We got to keep our cars and my guns. And
got to keep the guns.
Got to keep the guns. We had to pay for our cars to keep the cars, but we lost everything. We ended up living in rental homes for several years. I ended up, for about 3 years, worked with a group of guys out of Salem. I was just having breakfast with my friend Rich Kansky of Green Acres Landscaping. And he said, hey, we're doing this work with banks where we go in and, we cut grass and remove trash and scoop poop out of toilets and pick up drug needles and whatever on all the homes throughout Oregon that the banks are foreclosing on. And do you want to do that? I'm like, well, whatever it takes to feed my family. So I did that for about 3 years and worked 6-7 days a week, and finally had the opportunity in 2011 to restart my business, named it after myself, which I wouldn't do again. But anyways, that was the counsel I received. It was like, oh, just name it after yourself. That's easy. Well, it is. So anyways, had the chance to build a custom home in 2011 for some great people. And then just things continued. Honestly, the Lord just continued to bless me with clients. Like I just couldn't believe it. So continued to grow from a team of 1, which was me, and had another person to help me in the office. And now we have, 16 employees, and we're covering a decent portion of Oregon territory.
Awesome. Well, if you had the opportunity to rename your business, have you put any thoughts into something other than Mike Riddle Construction or Riddle Construction?
Yeah, I mean, gosh, hindsight's always 2020. I had no dreams or ambitions to create a bigger business with this many employees and this much reach. It was more of just I just wanted to feed my family, and so I didn't even think about the name as being really all that significant. But as I get older and I think about transition into retirement, which is still a ways away, I'm only 50, but it is something that you start to plan for, 10, 15 years out. That a more transferable name or a more benign name that doesn't focus around me would have probably been easier for that transition. So just recently, I had a brand switch from Mike Riddle Construction to just Riddle Construction. There's a little less emphasis on Mike and more emphasis on the team and our process. But, I could have come up with something like, Heritage or, Nike or, some other kind of like name that doesn't have a person's name associated with it. That would have been pretty cool. But I just wasn't thinking that way because it was just like, hey, I need to get business. I need to start working. So this is easy.
Yeah. I own a commercial roofing company, and we're called Dave Loden Construction. My dad named it after himself, and we still get calls every day. People call in and want to talk to Dave. I'm like, well, he's been retired for 11 years. So,
yeah. And that's why I changed it to Riddle Construction, because at some point, they don't know to call in and talk to Mike, right?
Yeah. Awesome. Well, it sounds like things have really blown up and grown in a big way. You said when you started, you didn't really have a vision or an idea to grow it to the point that it is. Was there a point where it really just kind of took off and got some legs of its own? Or, how has that growth progressed over the last, 13 years, 14 years?
Yeah, great question. It's been very interesting because it's been somewhat steady, probably from 2011 until maybe like 2020 or so. Then COVID hit, and which was actually really scary at first. It's like, man, what's going to happen? But honestly, COVID was amazing for the construction industry in a lot of different ways. The one way in which it was beneficial to our business is that we were not only doing custom homes, but we were doing remodels. And so people had to live in their homes more than they were used to living. And they realized, gosh, this is too small. We're too cramped, or I need a home office now because I have no office to go to. And so there was lots of opportunities to remodel homes for people because there just was no moving around. Interest rates were high. There wasn't as much inventory. That's still the case. Thus, remodeling is still great. But I would say one of the biggest trajectories was about 4 years ago. I had the opportunity to work with an architect and a client who I knew, but not super well. We went to the same church together. We had kind of mutual friends. We knew who each other were, but weren't really close. And when they had met with this architect and wanted to build a beach home on the Oregon coast, the client had said, hey, I want Mike Riddle to at least have a shot at it. They had already been talking to another contractor. And the architect was like, I don't think that's such a great idea. He's from the Valley. We should probably look at a coastal builder. And so anyways, they acquiesced, and I put together a full presentation of costs and all those things and a binder. And I met with the architects and the clients and laid out everything. And in the end, they actually chose the local contractor, even though I had construction experience on the coast. I built 3 homes there. They just liked his, he was more of a seasoned coastal builder, and they liked that as a safety blanket. So I didn't get that job, but the architects were very thankful for the amount of detail that I put in to the estimate and the communication that I had with them during that process. And when another job came up on the Oregon coast, they said, hey, we really think you should talk to Mike. And so I met with those clients, and we were able to build them an amazing custom home on the ocean. And it kind of just launched just the coast, division of our company. I hadn't really planned on going to the coast, but Nesquin and Pacific City are like, an hour and 15 minutes away. So not too far. And you get reception the whole way. So anyways, And over there, it's pretty interesting because a lot of the subdivisions we were working in were higher end neighborhoods, and they're pretty picky. And if you're able to just like answer the phone, like you're already in. Like it just that the bar was so low with a lot of other people that they had tried to work with that I had a sign. I kept my job sites clean. I communicated well with the HOA, and so that one person talked to another person, and then eventually it just continued to flourish in that neighborhood, as well as the relationship with that architect. The architect was a coastal architect, and so when they received another project, they came to me. When I received another opportunity, I took it to them. So it was just mutual feeding each other type of a thing, and we're still very close and good friends today. That's Capri Architecture, and they're just a husband and wife team. They're just amazing to work with.
That's interesting that I would not have expected there to be so much difference between kind of the valley and the coast. Like you said, it's 40 miles apart. But
right, yeah. And most of the homes that we're building are maybe second or third homes. Occasionally we're building some primary residences for people, and they're usually on the larger, more complicated luxury side, which is really fun because every project is unique, and every project is unique at the coast anyways because of topography and soil conditions. And then of course, just the wind and the rain and the salt just corrodes everything. So there's just different building practices. And so we've become an expert, and have actually expanded our way up the coast. So now we're doing most of the Oregon coast right now, and able to service a lot of clients up and down the coast.
Wow, that's great. So in your process of building your business, when was the time that you were most afraid?
That's a great question. I would say that I was most afraid to lose it. When I had built up a little bit, what I thought was successful, it was paying the bills. My family was able to build ourselves a home. And I think I was most afraid at the precipice of, can you keep this company or not? And whether or not this was something that I was really meant to continue to do. Restarting the business was not scary. In 2011, when I restarted, the very beginning, I think was definitely scary because I was giving up a very secure teaching job. I knew where my paycheck was coming from every month, albeit not very much. I at least knew that it was consistent. Whereas now, the money I was going to be receiving from the construction side was going to be based on lots of different factors, right? What kind of project I could do, how quickly I could sell it, how quickly I could get paid. And so that the cash flow game was actually, very scary. And that's why I held on and was working stupid hours in order to keep that comfort. So it wasn't as scary because I knew I still had the comfort, and then whatever I made on top of that was kind of gravy. So, but at the precipice of losing everything, I'd say was the scariest time. I know it's kind of maybe not exactly answering that question, but that was the scariest part about running a business, is like, wait, somebody can like be mad at you and like just take your whole life away. I was like, wow. Okay. No one had ever said that before. Maybe it wouldn't have signed up for that had I known that. So that was probably the scariest time.
Yeah. Yeah, that is kind of terrifying when you realize how fragile some of those businesses are, and the situation you can get into. So,
yeah.
Is there something really unique about your business or your journey in building your business that you think sets you apart from other home builders?
Without trying to sound conceited, it really is. I set up the business. It was around me. It was around my personality. It was around my work ethic. It was around my integrity. It was around my values and core mission and all of that. It wasn't necessarily around a team because I didn't have a team. And so the ability to communicate with people on a very honest level and give them the information that they want with full transparency, I think has been something that has set me apart. I'm certainly not the only builder who's transparent, but the honesty, the transparency, the likability of my interactions with clients has been, I think, something that has set me apart. I feel like I'm very personable and trustworthy. I give off that impression, and it's genuine and true, and most people identify and can kind of smell a rat. And it's been very difficult to try to replicate that into a scale. And so the creation of systems and procedures of taking all of those things that I just mentioned and teaching my teammates to be the same way. And so hiring people that are as close to you as possible, but with other skill sets that maybe you don't have. Like certainly I can't do everything in the business. And a lot of my employees are younger, and so they're very moldable and shapeable. But to start off with, I think it has been the willingness to go the distance for the clients, and knowing that, giving the sense of security that I have their back and that I'm going to do whatever it takes to make it right, and to do it right the first time. But when things don't go well, which happens all the time in construction, right? You own a roofing company. Sometimes things just don't go well. You're relying on people, and people are imperfect. You're relying on people to not only make the materials that you're using that are imperfect, but you're also relying on people imperfect people to install imperfect materials perfectly, and that doesn't always work well. And so, getting clients to fully trust that whatever it takes to make it right, you will do that. That's not everybody in the industry. I think people might talk that way, but when you actually put your money where your mouth is, that's something that I have a strong reputation for, and will continue to for the remainder of my involvement in the business anyways.
Yeah. Well, you kind of stepped into my next question, but I'd like to expand on it a little bit. I think a lot of construction companies, probably companies in general, but I'm in the construction world. Mm-hmm. That initial company launch and building, it is very personality centric. It's mm-hmm. the owner is the touch point. Mm-hmm. The crew runs on their personality, their schedule, their work ethic, all the things that you said. And so there's often kind of a delay or a transition point in growing through a personality-centric business to a systems and a culture business. Mm-hmm. So could you speak into maybe the strategy, the approach? You mentioned, hiring people that are similar to you, hiring young people, training them well. Is there more to that strategy, that approach to help transition from just your personality to a business where the whole culture kind of exemplifies that personality that you built the business on?
Yeah, it's a great question. All the things that you mentioned that I mentioned before are certainly true, but I think one of the hardest things is that when you have built something that, let's call it your baby, you've built something that you're so proud of and that you've worked so hard at creating, you've built it from the ground up, and it's super hard to let go of. So I would say that humility and trust are essential to be able to grow and scale. So in other words, having humility to say, hey, I am not the only person in the world who can be good at this. And I am also not the only person who can actually shepherd this process to success. And I have to be able to trust, but verify, that person who I am working with, or a group of people that I'm working with, can follow the path and still allowing for some uniqueness that they have, that they bring to the table. So that trust and transparency is just absolutely vital to do that. I tell you, it's been probably one of the biggest struggles of my professional career, is being able to trust somebody else and then honestly pay for the mistakes that other people make, right? And so, I kind of grew up where my dad would say, if you want something done right, do it yourself.
Do it yourself.
And while that is true most of the time, it's actually not true if you put the right people in place and train them the way that you want them to be and allow them to kind of grow, and grow without the fear of failure. So all of my employees have known that if they make a mistake, I'm going to take care of it. They may have to fix it, but I'm going to pay the bill. It's not coming out of their paycheck. And so that makes it more safe for them to grow and step out on a limb and say, you know what, I'm going to make this call because I've been trained. I feel like I know what the right decision is, so I'm going to make the call. And if it doesn't go right, I know that Mike's going to back me up and he's going to help me fix it. Versus, okay, if I make a call and it's not right, I'm going to get fired. And so therefore I might, hold my cards a little closer. I might not make that call. I might not grow. And so that has been a very difficult decision, but an intentional decision to make, because it has cost me lots and lots of money. As a business owner, it just, people make mistakes and it's costly, but it also allows me to get to levels that I would never be able to get to without myself or by myself.
I have a junior leader in our organization that when he was relatively new with our company, he made kind of a big mistake, what was at the time going to cost us quite a bit of money. Mm-hmm. And he very sheepishly came up to me after he made the mistake to talk about it. And he goes, "So am I fired then?" I said, "No, you just learned a valuable lesson and you cost me a lot of money. I need you working here so you can make that money back." And
yeah, it's a good point.
And he has grown into one of our, like I said, kind of a leader in our company. And that story's been told across our company to almost everybody that's been hired. And usually not by me. It's usually the other employees about how we handle mistakes. And,
sure.
Making mistakes aren't a good thing, but
right.
Eric's going to take care of it, and we're going to fix it and move on. So I think that's a great thing.
It is. It's a culture and it's a choice. And there are some companies that just choose not to have that culture, and that's okay. But I learned this when I was, I learned it growing up. This is just who I am. My faith teaches me that grace is important. I've had a lot of grace on my life, so therefore I need to give grace to other people. But just a quick story. When I was working on a very large custom home, this was during college when I was working for that builder during the summer, I was cutting my very first blue lamb beam, and it was going to be we hand cut all of our roofs back then. There was no trusses. There were, but we never used them. And I cut completely wrong. It was like going to be 2 inches short. And, at the time I thought that blue lamb beam might've cost $20,000. I had no idea. Now that I know it was probably a $500 beam, but as soon as I cut it, my boss came up to me and says, "Hey, Mike, do you realize that you did this and now we can't use this anymore?" I just felt awful. But he says, "Don't worry, we'll get a new one. It'll be here tomorrow and we'll cut it right and I'll show you how to do it." And that level of grace, just right, without "you idiot" or "you this" or "you that," just, I don't know, solidified in my heart that that's how I wanted to be. That was the culture I wanted to instill. They never cussed at me. They never said bad words. They never said, "you idiot." And of course I made other mistakes. That wasn't the only one, but that culture is just critical for success. And actually probably about 2 weeks ago, I got to talk to that man for the first time in decades. And I told him how important that was to the foundation of my business and the culture that we have. And he was just so honored, and he should have been. He deserves all the honor for that.
That's great. I love that. Yeah, we're all going to make mistakes, and we're going to talk about it. We're going to learn from it, but you pick up the pieces and keep going.
That's right.
Was there anything that significantly delayed the growth of your company? And if so, how would you have handled it differently?
It's hard to necessarily pick one. Most of the time, the lack of growth or the stunting of growth is just due to pride, or it's due to a lack of vision. To be honest with you, I think it's something to where I've always had the opinion and philosophy that whatever is going to come my way, I'm going to do the absolute very best I can with. And I'm going to, I guess, receive the blessing or the opportunity and then, do what I can with it, versus saying, hey, I'm going to still do that, but I also want to be able to start thinking about, well, what would it look like if we did this? What would it look like if we had that? And then through, as I mentioned, my faith, then through prayer and listening and being humble to say, not my will, but yours. I've had the opportunity and the thought process to say, well, maybe we should have a coastal division and a valley division. Maybe we should be doing remodels in both locations. Well, that means that I can't stay the same size. So in order to fulfill that opportunity and to take advantage of those opportunities, I was forced to scale. And I had felt as if it was yesterday, the pain of not being able to build a doghouse for anybody. Like I mentioned before, during the Great Recession, just was no construction work out there, at least not on a huge scale like it had been for so many years. And so saying no was like you just didn't do it. Like an opportunity came up, you said yes. And so I've continued to have that same hungry mentality, hungry for wanting to capture opportunities, but also being able to refine that to where not everybody is a client and not every opportunity is a good opportunity. And so it went from every opportunity is an opportunity to where it's now every opportunity is worth a look over. And then we can decide which one's going to be the best, so that we can say yes to the great. So we can say no to some good ones so we can say yes to the great ones.
Great. So what, in your business, what are the primary determining factors between a great customer and an opportunity that you need to pass on, or a great job? What do you look for? What is kind of your niche that makes a great project for you?
Yeah, it really all comes down to relationship. I don't care what the house looks like. I don't care what your budget is. It makes no difference to me. It really matters about who you are as people. How does the husband and wife get along, or the spouses get along? How do they fight? How do they get mad? How do they communicate? And then how do I play? How do I play into that? What are my personality traits, and how do I like to communicate? And sharing those things openly and candidly with each other at the beginning of the process. They most of the time already come to me with a knowledge that I am qualified. Okay, I am qualified to build their home. They've seen my Instagram page, Facebook. They've seen my socials. They've seen my website. They've talked to friends. They've heard however they hear about me. The qualification part is there. They know that I could build their multi-million-dollar home because I've done it many, many, many times before. What's really important is that the person that I want to be able to trust with my emotions, with my heart, and with my resources? And is that person going to protect those things just as much as he would protect them for himself? And so we talk about those things. We talk about that just openly. It's kind of like, hey, can we just kind of like get over the first date? We're just going to like speed date through this. And we're just going to get down to the just, raw questions that we both really want to know. And there's just no sense of beating around the bush. As I've matured in age and in business acumen, I've just realized that cut the fluff, right? It's just don't tell me anything that is just not 100% true, because it's just not going to benefit you or me. And so I'm just looking for clients who are open, who are honest, who are forgiving, who have grace, who have that grace mentality, who want to be involved in the process, but also be willing to trust me and listen to my opinions because I've been doing it for so long. A lot of people are building these large, expensive homes for the first time in their life. Or maybe they've done some other homes, but they may have not done one to this scale. And so since I do this every day, just like an attorney or a CPA or whatever, we're going to them for their expertise. And I want that mutual or that respect of them understanding that I do have some knowledge to be able to impart, but ultimately it's getting them what they want and making sure that we're both on the same page. And we have those discussions up front. And sometimes what we typically do is we enter into a temporary agreement to just work together to do feasibility. So it's kind of like dating. And if the dating process doesn't work, well, we're not going to get married. And that's okay, because it gives them the opportunity to see if they like me and they like our team and our process. And it gives me the time to also say that with just minimal commitment. And then we know that when we're signing that final contract, it's like, hey, man, we love each other. We're going to do anything we can for each other. And by the end of this thing, you're going to be calling me on holidays and you're going to be having me come over for a drink or, whatever. Maybe not every week, but we're going to be friends. We're going to be friends for a really long time. And when you need something again, or when your family needs something, I'm here.
That is awesome. I love hearing somebody that has that commitment to their customers and the process. And I think, I guess I'm not in the custom home building business, but in construction in general, that's something I think is pretty rare. Would you agree with that?
I absolutely would agree with it. It's been what I have built all of the relationships on, because if you remember back when we were talking about teaching, well, I was teaching all day, but there were homes being built while I was teaching. So every 5-minute break in between, class 1 to class 2, I would be on the phone. Okay. Oh, what do you need? Okay. Whatever it was, I'd be on the phone with the framer, the plumber, the electrician or whatever. It's like, okay, I got to call you back. I got kids coming in, and I'd call them back, 25 minutes later. And so it was the opportunity where I had to rely on the expertise of the trade professionals to help me. And my goal, and hopefully people don't, cut this segment out and use it inappropriately, but my goal is to make my trade partners as much money as possible. And that doesn't mean gouging. That means that they are making a good living, so they will prioritize my clients and therefore allow me to be able to provide not only the best quality, but the best service and the best longevity to whatever it is we're doing that is out there. And that doesn't happen with me beating up my trade partners for, $5 or $500. It's like, I need you to give me a fair price for you to be able to make a good living and for you to prioritize my clients, not your other clients, but my clients. And so what's that price look like? And my trade partners love me and I absolutely love them, and I can't do it without them and they can't do it without me. So it's a very, symbiotic relationship, I guess might be the right word, but it's so critical that if this business is not about sticks and bricks. It is all about relationships, 100%.
That is great. Yeah, I appreciate that. I've said for a long time that the best projects are good business for everybody. The customer gets a great product, great service at a reasonable price. Everybody involved makes a reasonable profit, makes good money. That's good business.
Absolutely. Win, win, win all around. That's what it has to be.
Yeah, perfect. What is something that you wish you would have learned earlier?
I think learning how to plan and be more proactive versus reactive. From the beginning, I entered the market, as I mentioned, when the market was very good and was very spoiled. I just thought, gosh, a dumb school teacher builder, can make, $50,000 on a house. I didn't even hardly know what I was doing. And so, man, this is easy and it's always going to be this way. So I think understanding the financial process of how the construction industry works was something that I had no experience in. I took 0 classes of any economics. The only partial economic class I took in college and my master's was like intro to micro econ. And I had to beg the professor for a C-. I was just completely brain dead. I didn't understand it. And now, frankly, the finance portion of the business and planning is something that I really enjoy because it helps me make decisions. And before it was just always reactionary. It's like, okay, well, this happens. Okay, well, what's the best decision I can make now? Well, I guess it's this. And, it's still not a very good decision, but it's the best one I can make. Whereas now we work as hard as we can to make the decision ahead of time so that when the situation comes up, we already know what to do. We can get through it, get past it, and move forward so that we're looking out the windshield and not the rearview mirror.
That's a good soundbite right there, looking out the windshield. Mm-hmm. Is there an opinion you have that has changed significantly as a result of your journey building your business? Is there something that you thought, or maybe a group of people or an idea that you judged unfairly early on, and you've changed how you look at that with more experience?
Yeah, I think, and it changed quickly. I grew up in an era in which the blue collar trades were kind of like what you did if you just weren't smart enough to go to college, right? So if you didn't go to college, you're kind of like a loser, right? You're going to work at 7-Eleven or work at a gas station or whatever it is you're going to do. And the trades were looked at as, a plan B, C, or D, right? If you just couldn't get a great career job. And I didn't know what I didn't know. I was just a dumb kid. And as I got into the industry and I actually spent more time and understood the craft that these people do, they are far from being dumb. They're frankly a lot smarter and more useful than any of the degrees that I have, to be honest. If you ever were to come to some of the homes that I build and look at the geometry and the math that it takes to build the homes that we do, it'll blow your mind, absolutely blow your mind. So I would say at the very beginning, I think that our environment, our society taught people to not respect the trades, not respect the blue collar. And now it's like, those are the most respect. That's the most respect I have is somebody who can do something with their mind and their hands at the same time. And frankly, that's something AI is never going to be able to replicate, no matter how smart it is. I don't see AI, installing, a drain underneath my sink or, framing a shed in my backyard. They're just not going to be able to do those kinds of things. And so that's what I would say is probably the biggest thing is the respect I have for people in the industry.
That's great. Sorry to go a little bit off topic. I saw a meme or a reel or something online combining two of your stories here. Mm-hmm. And it said, AI is coming for my job. Let's see AI drive 2 hours to a remote job site just to cut a beam 1 foot short.
Yeah. Yeah, fair enough. Hey, listen, I mean, when I was teaching and like I was telling you in between classes, I had one of those old, Motorola flip phones. And then I got a BlackBerry and I was like, oh my gosh, my world has changed. I don't have to push, the number 3 twice to get B. It's just so much easier to type a text message. And, here we are. Technology is amazing. When my very first year in college, we learned about this thing called email. I'm like, email, what's that? And computers I'd heard of, but we had never really had one. We just did typewriters. I'm really dating myself. But anyways, it was like I learned all about the internet. And of course, there's so much good in technology that is out there to be used. And of course, there's a lot of bad things it can be used for too. But hey, listen, I used ChatGPT for quite a few things. It certainly is not going to replace any part of my business, but it has allowed me to be a little bit more efficient where when I'm trying to research something, I'm not having to go to 5 or 10 different places. I'm able to kind of use more of a rifle approach versus a shotgun approach.
Absolutely.
But there's no question there's good things about it. And I don't think anybody in the trade industry is going to have anything to worry about. I'm sure it'll take over a few things, but at some point, but there's nothing like the human hand and the human brain.
In your circle, or maybe in culture as a whole, do you see that shift happening widespread? Because I'm with you. The generation I grew up in, it was all go to college, go to college, go to college. You got to get an education, and if you don't, those are kind of the second tier citizens. Do you see that opinion shifting in culture as a whole, or in your circle anyway?
Absolutely. I think a shift to more, trade specific or trade centric learning, or career technical education is what it might be more of a, common term, has been a focus for over a decade now. However, it had been the other way for so many decades. Let's consider that as like the Titanic. You don't turn the Titanic around like a canoe. It takes a long time to turn that boat around. And so, I've been involved with a nonprofit for over a decade now, where we work with the high school kids. And we work with a program that has high school kids where we build a house every year, and we get people in the community to come together and help donate, as much as we can, and whatever proceeds we make when we sell that house buys the lot, builds the house for the next year. And so we're working on house number 11 or 12 now. And that school that they go to has 10 different programs. There's police, there's filmmaking, there's auto body, there's manufacturing and welding, there's like psychology, behavior. There's a whole bunch of different programs. And to be honest with you, the graduation rate is embarrassing compared to the rest of the graduation rate of all of the other schools in Oregon. So graduation rate at that particular school is like 94% or something like that. And the average of in Oregon high schools is like 70 something. It's abysmal. But when kids can understand how to apply the, let's quote unquote, stupid things that they're learning in school, but they understand there's an application for it, and how that application can make my life better, or how it can make me money, or how it can do this or do that. It's like the light bulb goes off, and adults are realizing, and they have been realizing, that, hey, the people coming out of school don't have very many skills, at least the skills that I need to meet the demand that we have. And so, boy, if we don't do something different, we're still going to have the same problem. So yes, there is a big push. There has been a push for a while. There's going to continue to be a push. I personally would love to see more of a, probably what a lot of schools in, Europe and those kinds do, where you have your education up to a certain time, and then you kind of help steer kids towards a career path. And of course they can change, that career within that school. But, they're in high school, they're going to come out with being able to then go right into becoming an electrician, or being a framer, or being an architect, or an engineer, or whatever it might be. I think that's the future of education. I really do. And I think there's an employed there's a company-wide or nationwide need by companies to employ these types of critical thinkers, and that's kind of what they almost require now. They're going to have the leg up versus somebody who just has a degree in philosophy or archaeology or whatever it might be.
That's great to hear. I see similar things in our area. And I've been preaching that for a long time, probably 20 years almost.
Mm-hmm,
I've been talking about the opportunity in the trade, and that I don't ever want to talk down on education, because there's a role for all of that too. Sure. But this culture we had built of one track to success, and that's where everybody goes, just isn't true. There's a lot of opportunity out there, and there's a lot of people that are not built for higher education and some of the career tracks that go towards, that are incredibly brilliant, talented, capable people. Mm-hmm. And they would way rather be out on a job site than sitting in a classroom.
Absolutely. And to me, I don't see either one of them as being brighter than the other. It's just, it's being used for, they're using their gifts for something that's really good. And sometimes that's both, and sometimes it's one and the other. But we all have a role to play. And finding out that role as young as possible is I think what we really should be doing as society, is helping people understand what their calling is, and then supporting them to get there.
That's great. I can't agree more. So. Have you ever made a beneficial mistake? sometime when you really screwed up, it hurt you at the time, but in the long run, it led to a valuable lesson or really ended up helping you grow.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, as I mentioned before, I wanted to be upfront with clients that, hey, I'm going to do whatever it takes to make things right. Well, that's easy to say, okay, but when something happens that is has a lot of dollar signs behind it, then it's going to test whether or not you really believe what you're saying and you're willing to put your money where your mouth is. So I've had multiple opportunities where, I've had to make things right. I've had to eat it, if you will. And frankly, we have a large amount of that every year because we want to make sure that we do the right thing every time. And sometimes things in construction just happen. That's really nobody's fault. But ultimately, I'm the general. I am the person in charge. And so if something happens, I'm the one who's going to be able to take the heat for it. And so I believe that wholeheartedly. I've had opportunities where I've had to go and take a $50,000 bath, where I had to say, hey, listen, we screwed up. And here's what I want. I want to be able to lighten this load because I want us to be friends. I still want to be able to do projects for you in the past. And would reducing this amount allow you to feel good about this relationship so that we can move forward? And he said yes. And there's been other times where I haven't even had to have that conversation. I just do it. The clients find out about it, and they're just like, Mike, thank you for doing that. I'm like, are you kidding? That's just what we do. I wouldn't even think about it any other way. So we do the right thing every time. Now, sometimes we get it wrong, right? It's not intentional, but we're always going to get to the right way every time. And I think that's just something that is something that's part of our DNA. It's part of our culture. All of my guys know that we do that, and gals, of course. That this is who we are and this is how we do it. Now, obviously, we try to do as little as possible, but ultimately, that's the money part is further on down the line of importance versus the honesty and integrity that we gain from doing the right thing.
Yeah, I've found that the customers on some of my projects that went the most sideways had the most problems, or like you said, that ended up eating a mistake in the largest amounts. Often those have come back to be my best customers. They're my raving reviews. They're the ones that go out and tell all their friends. Have you found that to be true as well?
Absolutely. It maybe not in every case, but yeah, absolutely. And the reason is because they respect somebody who is willing to do whatever it takes to do the right thing, right? Regardless, and this is the definition of integrity, right? Regardless of who's watching or how it looks or how it hurts. That's, I think, a lot of people really appreciate that. They want to be around people like that. They want to do business with people like that. And it's definitely something I've experienced.
That's great. So if you could go back to the beginning, 2011, launching Riddle Construction, would you choose to do it all over again?
Absolutely, I would, in a heartbeat. People have asked me that. I've thought about other things that I would want to do, and there's maybe a few things that I think would be kind of fun. I would love to own a restaurant or be a bartender because I like people, and I like being with people in fun situations. Where they're happy and enjoying themselves. But clearly, neither one of those things are really part of my skill set, nor, from what I understand, are, financially wise to just start it and go, unless you're willing to take some big hits. But no, I really wouldn't. I love what I do. I feel like this is who I was called to be. And frankly, it's not necessarily building, although that's how it's manifesting itself now. It's just being the type of person that I was called to be, and it just happens to be in this particular industry. But if I was pulled out of this industry and moved to a different industry, I would do things very similar, obviously with just some different nuances. But but no, I love what I do. I love being creative. I love being social. I love communicating. I love building teams. I love building people. I love helping people spend an enormous amount of money and have fun doing it. Right. And I love doing that, because that is something that most people don't get to do very often. And man, who wants to spend, $2 to $10 million with $20 million and not have fun doing it? I mean, that's crazy. No one would ever like sign up for that. And so I love being a part of experience with people where I get to use my team's specialty to help make dreams come true.
Man, you've got me all jealous. I've said for a long time, if I ever end up with a second career, I want to sell something that people are excited to buy. Mm-hmm. As a roofer, maybe I need to take some lessons from you. Maybe I'm just not good at it enough, but it's very rare that I have a customer that's excited to write me a check.
Yeah, I hear you. And that's, to be honest, that's probably any singular trade other than maybe somebody who creates a vase or something, some kind of a cool product. But boy, without the roof, I mean, what good is anything else, right? So
yeah. Well, but that's the thing is, especially we do mostly commercial, so it's not even a big visual appeal. Like most of our roofs are flat, out of sight, you can't see them,
sure.
And the customer hires us because they have to, never because they want to. And we take good care of them, we give them good service, but writing that check is like pulling teeth. So I've always said in my next career, I want to sell something fun. I want to sell four-wheelers or speedboats or something.
There you go. Yeah, I love that. Yeah, I think honestly, knowing your strengths are really important. And, frankly, it could be roofing, it could be plumbing supplies, it could be four-wheelers, it could be whatever. And I think finding your purpose in whatever it is, it's selling four-wheelers or roofing is no more or less glamorous. It's just, where you're supposed to be right now.
That's good advice.
Yeah.
So, what has been your biggest win as a leader or as a business owner?
I think one of the biggest wins that I have is when I can watch my team come together as a team and solve problems using the experience and the tools that they've been given to do the right thing, make a situation right, or do whatever. And it's not always retroactive where there was a mistake, but it's also making plans to be successful ahead of time. And one of the things I find most rewarding, if I'm answering your question right, is being able to see the fruit of what I had worked, very hard to create actually, come to fruition. And I'm just so proud of the team that I have. They're just solid humans, every single one of them. And we continue to receive opportunities to hire, and partner with new people. And a lot of the times, Eric, I don't even look for them. They find me. And it's just like, I had one guy just come into the office and said, "How do I come to work for you?" I'm like, "What? Who does that?" And we get to know him, and we're just like, "How do we hire you?" It's just so cool to be able to be a part of something to where you get to put something in place, you get to see the fruit. Not always do you get to do that. Sometimes you're the person cultivating the soil, sometimes you're the person planting, sometimes you're the person watering, sometimes you're the harvester. And so it is fun to be able to have multiple opportunities to see growth.
I think the best leaders that I've interviewed, when I ask that question, none of them ever talk about their success or financial success. They talk about their team and their people. Yeah. And I can tell you have a real passion for the people that work for you and your team. What has been a secret to, I guess now you kind of have a culture that, like you said, just attracts those people. Mm-hmm. But do you have a secret for how you started out? How do you find people that fit your culture and help you build that business that you're excited about your people?
Yeah, great question. I think first you have to know what you're looking for. So what type of person am I looking for? What are the skill sets? What are the personality traits, both positive and negative? So knowing what I'm looking for is really critical, because it's kind of like my bumpers, it's my guide rails, it's whatever, so that I'm not, looking off over here. It's like, it's a really nice gal or a really nice guy. The resume is great, but they just didn't mark 3 or 4 of these other boxes, like, being personable or being humble or being thoughtful or being a good speller, things like that. Being a teacher, I razz my team all the time when I see spelling mistakes. I make sure that they know it, and they're very embarrassed, so they make very few spelling mistakes. But I think, in addition, it's creating a sense of unity amongst the teammates, so that when you are looking for somebody else, you're looking for somebody else who wants to be able to come into an environment that's like that. So it's creating an environment that you want, and then looking for people who not only have the skills, but have the desire to enter to that type of community. Because there could be some people with skills that could definitely do the job, but they might not have the temperament. They might not have the personality to be able to fit into the culture. And that's really critical. So knowing what you want is the first thing. And then, to be honest, it's really just getting the word out through your inner circle, whether that be, social media, it might be, your church, or it could be, I don't want to say like Craigslist or anything, but, just getting stuff out there, doing stuff like Indeed and things like that, where it's the big corporate stuff. I've just found that to be, have a lack of fruit. I'm looking for personal recommendations of people who know our business and feel like that person would be a good fit.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
What has been your best resource to grow as a leader? Do you have an author, a book, a podcast, something that has really helped you grow?
Yeah, I tell you, what helps me to grow the most is my faith. So, leaning into the Word. But if I had to use the 2 other kinds, is definitely people. There are people, mentors in my life that have been different stages of my life that have been able to. There's been a person who could help me to grow into this stage of my life, and then another person came into my life that helped me grow through this stage, and so on and so forth. Those relationships are critical, because you're getting to see eyeball to eyeball to another person, and that person typically has kind of been there, done that. Maybe not even the same exact situations, but they have such an objective piece about them that they could just truly just talk into your life without having to, feel anything else per se, have anything else weight them down and have to feel obligated to say this because they're your cousin or because they're financially, a fiduciary to you or something. Some books that I love. There's so many good books, and I get into every single one of them. But one of the books that I make every single one of my employees read, it's mandatory. It's called The Ideal Player, and it's by the guy's last name is Lencioni, or I think that's how you pronounce it.
Yep, Lencioni.
Patrick. So the premise of the 3 things about the book that I love the most, and this is something that we talk about in all of our team meetings, we talk about on some of our trade partner meetings, is being hungry, humble, and smart. And so it's hungry to always learn. It's hungry to get better. It's hungry to be the best that you can. It's humble, knowing that you can't do it yourself. You don't know everything. You need other people. You need mentors. You need instruction. And then smart is not book smart. It's not that it couldn't be part of it. It's really about people smart. It's being able to read the room. It's being able to understand when you need to give bad news fast, and when you need to maybe ratchet it back a little bit and wait for a better opportunity when this or that might need to occur. So that book is really so critical, and those are the types of people that I'm looking for. And if you don't have those 3 things, or at least it's not something that you're striving for, that you don't ever arrive. Nobody arrives that they're perfectly humble, they're perfectly hungry and smart. But if that resonates with them, I think that's huge. So that book has really helped transform. It's at least one thing that I can say. Of course, How to Win Friends and Influence People is an amazing book. There's so many good ones. The EOS, what the heck is EOS? There's so many really good books that I like for not only self-help but organization, because these are things that I just didn't learn in school, or if I did, they just went right over my head because I saw no application. Like my sophomore year in high school, taking geometry, I'm like, man, what a waste of time. And now I build houses with geometry every day. And as soon as I realized that, it's like, man, I love geometry. How come I didn't like that more? So
we had a guest on a couple weeks ago. He was a former MARSOC Marine, and he said that he hated math in high school, and then he joined the Marines, and they taught him that you can weaponize math.
Yes.
It's artillery, long-distance shooting, it's all math. And he got excited about math once he found out you can use it for war.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love math now. It was one of my hardest subjects, but I realized what math does is it helps me to make good decisions that then help with other parts of my life, not necessarily just financial, but they can help in many other ways. And so math has become real, and there's a real application to it. I'm trying to teach that to my kids too, and try to get them to pay the bill and do the appropriate amount of tip, and get them to understand that you can make good decisions, which will help make you be more successful in so many different ways. So
good stuff. Well, I know you've been through some hard stuff. You started a business from scratch twice, transitioned from a white-collar teaching career to blue-collar construction, and even experienced bankruptcy and a failed business. What gives you the motivation to keep going when things get hard?
That's so good. It comes back to number one, my faith. I just know that that no matter what, I'm loved, I'm saved, and I'm protected in a certain way. One of my favorite sayings is, consider it pure joy, my brothers, when you experience pain and affliction, because it creates perseverance, and perseverance creates other good things. I mean, it's obviously a paraphrase, but I wouldn't say that I relish challenge and pain and conflict and those kinds of things, but as I have matured, not only in life, but through business, I've realized that those are the opportunities in which I grow the most. Those are the opportunities in which I have actually gained the most traction. I gained the most knowledge. I gained the most insight. I gained the most, experience of whatever the feelings were. And, the going through some of those afflictions that you mentioned, losing my home, it was the most embarrassing thing. Eric, I had to go to the bankruptcy court, and it's like the client was there saying how much they hated me, and the judge was, saying, okay, you've lost everything. Just so, I had 4 kids to support and a wife, and it was just so low. It was a very big low. And I can tell you, to this day, I wouldn't trade it for the world. I am the man, the husband, the father, the business owner, and the person I am today because of the hardships that I've gone through. And while I certainly don't want to do that again, I do know that hardships create things of beauty in my life. And so I wouldn't say that I ask for them every day, but I certainly know that I know who is going to help me through it. And that is very comforting to know.
That's great. That's something I struggle with a lot. Is I look at my own life, and the times that I grew the most, the times that I matured the most, the times that I was closest to my Savior were the most difficult times in life. And so I think about, as I pray for my kids and think about what I hope for them and their future, man, I don't ever want to hope hardship on my kids or pray for hardship, but I also don't want them to live a life without the opportunity to experience the peace that you can have during hardship, the maturity, the growth, the development that comes with that. Yeah. And so it's kind of this, I'm with you. I don't ever hope for hardship, but There's a part of me that kind of longs for that development, that growth that comes through it.
Yeah. And I think that takes maturity over time, because when it happens for the first time, you're just like, who the heck just hit me? And just like I hit with a head with a hammer. But as time progresses and you mature in your walk in life and walk in faith, is that you just start to know that you know that you know that you know. And it becomes to where it's like, okay, I recognize it. Here we go. We're in a season. Here we go. We're under attack, but you know what? Lord, you got this. And so I'm here. Tell me what you need me to do. And I'm willing to do it. But yeah, praying over our kids every day is so huge, and getting them to understand that, not giving them a cheat code, to get out of it, because that doesn't work. But letting them know it will happen. And when it does, here's some things that you can do to help get you through it. But understand that the end goal is always this.
Yeah. And it's growth through it. I know I have a friend I meet with weekly to pray together, and we were sharing some stuff a couple weeks ago. And I said, right now I have 5 problems in front of me that 5 years ago, any one of those problems would have been almost debilitating.
Yeah.
And now I call it Tuesday.
Yeah. Amen, brother. Amen. And Eric, people that haven't been, through a lot of the things, or don't own a business, or haven't owned something, or been a part of something to where you have this exposure all the time. You can't get it. And you would never expect them to get it. But boy, I say that all the time. It's like, yeah, it's just like every other day. It's not always that dramatic, but you're right. And I think that part is so fun when you can actually retrospectively go, man, 2 years ago, like I would have been, so scared. I've been on my knees. I would have been, just like scared in a corner and running and doing anything I could do to kind of get away from it. And now it's just like, well, I've come a long ways, and thank you, Lord, for that.
That's great. Well, that is a great segue into my favorite question. It's a parent talking with you. You're a Jesus follower. Can you tell us a little bit about that and how that has shaped your journey building your business and shaped your growth as a leader?
Yeah, I would say that I grew up in a Christian household. I was saved as a young person in the mid 80s. I was 12 or something like that, and I always went to church, and I knew that was kind of my foundation. My parents we went to church every Sunday. It's just what we did. And I didn't necessarily always, have a deep love for the Lord and, follow him in every single aspect of my life, from the time I was little till now. But I can tell you that as my life progressed from one thing to the other, that foundation, that solid rock, I always felt it as a presence in my life. I have a tattoo on my arm, and it's a cross, and at the bottom of the cross is roots, and those roots, entangled in those roots is a verse in Proverbs where it basically talks about teach a child in the way that they would go, and when they're old, they will never waver. And that is something to where, as a parent, it has been so critical for me to help my kids understand that no matter what you do, where you go, how you perform, how you win, how you fail, God will never leave you. He will never forsake you. He will always be there for you. But he is a gentleman, and he will not force that upon you. You have to be able to connect to him. In this world, he created you for relationship, not only with him, but he created you for relationship with each other. And so if you're not having good relationships with others, it might mean that you're not having a good relationship with him. If you're having a great relationship with him, you probably are having good relationships with others. And so it's always being connected and rooted in the word, and rooted in your faith and fellowship with others who think the same. Not always, because of course we want to evangelize and be with as many people as we can. But those are things that I would say are so critical, is teach a child the way they should go, and when they're old, they will never waver. And doesn't mean that the road's perfect and smooth and always escalating up. There's going to be hills and valleys and low times and high times and lots of bumps and potholes. But ultimately, it is part of the journey, and with a for sure destination.
Yeah, Jesus says, pick up your cross and follow me, not hop on the escalator.
That's right. Amen. Amen.
All right. Well, you mentioned earlier that you've kind of gone through a name change recently. You're starting to think 10, 15 years down the road towards retirement. So what is next for you, and what's in your mind as far as an exit plan?
Yeah, it's a good question. Obviously, man picks his or chooses his way, but the Lord directs his paths. I think if I am planning out my future, what I am really working on right now in this part of my career is working more on the business than I am in the business. So it's creating higher level teams that can be doing some of the things that I used to do. It's creating processes and systems and metrics that we can follow, and incentive programs based on those metrics. So it's creating a system of how we do business, and our culture, and then of course there's all the nuts and bolts about how, what do we do when we do a standard soffit? What is the Riddle construction way? How do we do that? So we have that kind of a document to where if I had you come over and be one of my superintendents, I could give you that document and you would know that, okay, well, we don't put, two joints together of soffit and just caulk it and smear it. We always use a metal connection piece so that it's clean and crisp, and stuff like that, right? Or we always insulate all of our interior walls, no matter what. It's just what we do. It's a standard. So it's creating things like that where it's so hard to think about the business from a 50,000 foot view when you're the one swinging the hammer, because I used to do that. I used to pouch up. Yeah. And gosh, I'd set up a foundation wall. I'd put up one board. I'd be on a phone call for 10 minutes, and I'd set up the other board, and I'd be on the phone call. And then, oh shoot, I did that wrong. Or I forgot where I was. I missed the measurement. And so it's critical for, not critical, but it's what I'm trying to do now is look at how I want to lead my team for the future, so that it means less of me and more of how the system works, so that I can actually focus on things that I'm really good at, but I haven't necessarily had as much freedom to do because I've always been busy doing all the rest of the things. And that is just develop relationships amongst my own team, but then develop relationships in the community. It's networking. It's really being the person of the face of the company when you go out, and I actually can meet with the clients and instill in them who we are as a company. And then when my team comes in behind me, they're just like, who was Mike again? Because it's just so seamless, right? It's just a seamless transition from me to them. And then eventually that person who does what I said I was going to do is somebody else, or a multitude of people who can actually do that. And it doesn't have to be me. I never want it to be about me. So in the future, I see myself doing more of becoming an advisory role at some point. I've also started another business where we do kind of maintenance and concierge for a lot of our clients. So if they need their fridge stocked, or their windows washed, or their furniture out, or the barbecue cleaned, or whatever, just for our clients that sign up for this concierge service. And that might be something that I decide to kind of keep in the future. It's also a CRM tool to kind of retain our clients. And then if there's other clients that we get that we didn't build their house, then if there's issues that we need to fix something, then it's going right back to Riddle Construction for a remodel. So maybe I do something like that. I've also thought about becoming an owner's rep, to where I know how to put together teams. And I'm very involved in the Home Builders Association. I'm the state president of the Oregon Home Builders Association, and I'm on the leadership council and some committees for the National Association of Home Builders. And so have just a broad network of executive officers throughout the country where, hey, such and such in Wyoming, who's the best roofer? Who's the best builder actually in this area for this type of home? And then I would network with that builder, and we would bring in architects and interior designers. And then I would be the person that would be kind of the glue that holds everybody together, so that the homeowner doesn't have to talk and do all that work themselves. They can just trust that one person to look out for them and to make sure they have their back, and who they're not necessarily, in contract with to build the house. They're in the contract with to look after their needs. So that would involve some traveling, which we could take my wife. We've been married 27 years now, as of last week. And, we could do some traveling. Yeah, thank you. We could do some traveling and, get to see different parts of the country, get to meet new people, put together teams, and just celebrate what's so awesome about what we do. I'm not the only person in this country who can build a custom home. I'm just one of many, and wouldn't even consider myself the best by any means. But I love what I do and would love to help other people in the future kind of navigate that process when they don't know anybody in Austin or the Hamptons or Vail or McCall or whatever. So who knows? We'll see where the Lord leads me. I'm excited, whatever it looks like. I have 4 kids, and eventually we'll have grandkids, God willing. And obviously, they're going to be, just spread out all over the country based on what they do, and so that will be kind of fun to travel and see them. And I don't know. It's a ways out, so I can only kind of dream and start to somewhat plan that way.
Okay. Are any of your kids currently involved in your business, or do they have any ambition to join?
No, they don't. They are part of the social media team, so they do help with that. But one of them's a senior in college, one of them's a sophomore in college. They're doing completely different. Has nothing to do with my business. My senior in high school, not necessarily, I think, anything to do with the business. Maybe marketing, photography type stuff. So who knows? Maybe there's a segue there. And my son is, an 8th grader. He has no idea about anything, right? He's just living the dream, and he's had 3 sisters to do and his mom to do most things for him. So he's not thinking too far out ahead on what he might want to do, but hasn't shown any kind of desire to be part of the industry, which is totally fine. I don't have any ego, or if they want to be, of course I would welcome them, but it's not a requirement by any means. Just a lot of the lessons that this business would learn, I would want them to know. And that doesn't mean they have to work here to do that. Yeah,
that can always change too. I know I started working for my dad in my business. Wow. I mean, when I was born, basically, but I came on the team full-time on payroll, doing a full-time real job during the summer when I was 16. And from the time I was 16 till I was a junior in college, this was the last thing I was going to do as an adult career. And when my senior year of college came around and I had to actually start figuring out what I was going to do, I figured out maybe there was a difference between somebody that ran a roofing company and just a high school or college kid working on a roofing crew. And the job I was doing was maybe not the job I wanted to do, but I could still do it in the same organization. So
sure. That's awesome.
Yeah. Is there anybody that you would like to see on the show? Somebody that has a really cool story, maybe has a unique business or is in a unique industry that you'd like to learn more about?
Yeah, I think that's an interesting question. I would need to probably get back to you on that. There's so many people that I know that would be great, on this type of show. Probably have to get back to you on that one, Eric.
Okay. Well, I will follow up because we're always looking for unique and cool stories to tell on the show.
Okay.
So, all right. We're getting close to the end. My last question to either settle or fuel the debate. If you have a job to do, which cordless tool brand do you prefer?
I would say DeWalt. It's just something that I've used, forever. I've had experience with Milwaukee, and they're fine too. But DeWalt's kind of always been my go-to.
All right. We'll chalk one more up for DeWalt. So, well, Mike, thank you so much for joining us. It has been a pleasure getting to know you and chatting with you, having you on the show. I appreciate you taking the time and joining us. And for all of you listeners out there, thank you for joining us here on From the Ground Up show. If you want to be part of a future show, either as a featured guest or if you want to call in or write a question for myself or one of our guests, please hit us up online on our website. fromthegroundupshow.com, or you can find us on most social media at From the Ground Up Show. If you guys are enjoying the show, if you appreciate the content, please help me out. Leave a 5-star review, follow, subscribe, like, share. That's the best way we have to get the content out there. And until next time, keep grinding.